Hi, I'm Odeean, and today I'm having a look at the China version of Max Factory's Figma Drossel. So a real version of a Figma Drossel is a pretty expensive thing now. Haven't looked that recently, but the last time I did look, I think it was about $80 or $90. This is nowhere near that price range, and the sellers on eBay who I dealt with weren't trying to pass it off as a real Figma. It was priced at, with shipping, I think I paid $30, which is nowhere near what a real one would actually cost. The box itself and artwork, labeling, everything that's printed here looks pretty authentic, and if you didn't buy that many Figmas, you could probably get this passed off to you as an original. But I do notice that the printing is just a little bit less crisp than what I would expect, but by no means does it look like a cheap KO on the outside, at least. I think that whoever's making these things must be churning them out by the pallet load, because it was actually a little bit of a problem to buy one in the box. They much prefer to sell even loose, so for even less money than what I paid for this, you can pick up one that's just loose with all the bits and pieces in a Ziploc bag. And I mean, for what it is, it's alright. Let's get it open and have a look. Here's Drossel out of her box. Really quite cute. Drossel comes from Japan, where Disney produced a short show featuring her. She's a girl robot from the future when there's no humans left on Earth. If you want to check it out, it's on YouTube. There's plenty of episodes there. There's a couple of different versions. There's this one and the Charming Fireball Drossel. I have a review for Chogokin Charming Fireball Drossel, on my channel if you want to check that out. But this was the original design of Drossel. As a bit of a history to myself with this figure, I've been buying these for a while now. I mean, when the first Chogokin came out of this kind of Drossel, I wanted to pick up a Drossel, but couldn't really afford it at the time. So I picked up this exact same KO version, and it must be 2 years or 3 years ago now, and I've subsequently lost that. But my daughter was asking me for one, so I did buy one for her just recently, and then took the opportunity to grab a second one for myself. If you are considering giving one of these to a kid, it's okay. It doesn't seem to be dangerous in any way, as long as the child is, 4 or 5 years old at least. But it is also not super durable. So putting her over there, here's the one I gave to my daughter, who's already getting a little bit floppy. You can see that she's had to have some repairs done to her. This joint here kind of sheared off, and I think children don't understand that when something stops giving, that you just can't force it by pushing it harder, and she sheared that right off. But I'm no big deal, it's only $30. I just drove a hot needle through the little pin that's in there. So Drossel, we'll talk about looseness, Drossel can still move in and out here and rotate. She hasn't lost much. All she's lost is the swivel of the kind of upper bicep. For poseability, Drossel has quite a bit. She's got these pigtail things on the back of her head, and they're on ball joints. They do pop off relatively easily. And I've got this kind of tampo, I think that's what it is, printing on the back of it. Looks kind of nice. There's an alternate headpiece, which I'll show you in a moment. But moving on with articulation, her head is on a ball. She's got a ball on the inside shoulder and a ball-like joint on the outside shoulder that also swivels like this. So she's got kind of humanistic range of motion in those shoulders. She's got a swivel at the bicep and a kind of double joint at the elbow, although the second part of the double joint is kind of a little bit limited, and actually it's hard for me to tell. It might just be not assembled correctly. On one of the versions of this I've got, remember I've had 3, on one of the versions I had, the elbow was totally frozen up, and I had to very carefully unfreeze it by just jiggling it until it finally freed itself. These joints on this kind of material have a tendency to do that. Drossel has a ball under the rib cage here. It's kind of got the ability to wiggle backwards and forwards. She's got really wide range of motion. Balls at the hips, swivel at the knee, double joint at the knee, ball on the ankle. The wrists are also on a little swivel and pin joint, that kind of ball-like motion. So that just about sums up the way she can move, which is really a lot. Now, my surface here is not flat, hence why she falls over, but she does have relatively large feet, which on a flat, hard surface lets her stand up pretty good. Like even there, you see I've got it to do it. But she comes with this stand. Now, because this is a KO, I'm not going to judge the quality too harshly, but you can see that it is very loose to peg into the base and just falls out. And I would hope that a real Figma doesn't do that. I don't actually own any Figmas. I've got two on order, the Space Pirate Cobra and his female robot. Got them coming later in the year, and maybe I'll know for sure back then, but this stand is pretty shit. If you look closely at the side of the stand, you can see that it's really rusting badly on the little nuts and screws that hold it together. All three of the ones I've got of this have this really severe rust problem, and again, it's probably because it's a KO. I doubt that a real Figma would have such terrible rust coming out of it. Anyway, it just tabs on into the back like this. Bit stiff. And you can see already what the problem is. This stand that's come with her is a little bit tall. And I mean, I don't know, is that normal for Figma? But it seems that a real stand should be a bit closer to the actual height of the toy. I mean, you can always put it behind her like that and just help it to balance her without her feet being on it. But it seems weird to me that the strut on the stand is so tall in comparison to the figure itself. And there we go. That's just fallen off again. Now, sadly, a figure art stand that I do have won't fit into the back of her. Maybe with a little bit of a, if I can find a connector somewhere from one of my monster arts, that might be able to fit in the hole. Drossel has several props, one of them being this book. The book is featured prominently in the show. It says Anthropology 14 Gespatch mit der Menschheit in German. I don't know why. Maybe her creator is German. Lots of tiny little text in there, but it's only looks like you could read it. It's a little bit blurry when you get close up. Two of the hands that Drossel comes with are somewhat suited to holding this book, but unfortunately, given the extreme looseness of the toy, like the connection between some of the hands and the forearm, it becomes hard to pose it, and this is the best I could do at the moment without the hands just dropping out. Not all the hands are so loose, so we've got this stack of hands here, some gesturing and finger signs and that kind of thing. The hands that were in the figure when I first got it, these two, they're actually quite tight, and I'm sure that if I just drop some kind of super glue into the hole just a little bit to thicken up this port, they would all be tight enough, but I haven't done that yet, and the hands do just drop out like that. See what I mean? Drossel comes with another prop, and it's this big hair bun engine thing, and if you look on the outside, you can see it's got some pretty fine printing on it of flowers. Being a knockoff, there is also a paint smudge here, and you'll find that a few of the printing places on this toy have got paint smudges. It almost looks as if someone's dirty hand was actually touching it when it was being made. Also, this particular one is assembled kind of wrong. You can see that it's bent straight out of the box. The other two that I've bought aren't bent like this, but it's pretty cheap assembly work. I wonder if it'll go back. No, it's going to snap. If I try to straighten that off, it's going to snap. This is kind of permanently bonded into the wrong way. To put it onto a head, we just pop off those hair pieces from the ball joints, and this hair bun has two other little ball joints that pop back into them. And there she goes. It's pretty cool looking. I do like the weirdness of her accessories. The actual purpose of the hair bun isn't just to look good. So if we get, let's pull this out, I'm sick of this thing. If we get the outside part of this and just pop it off on both sides, you can see that they look like little engines. The reason that looks like a little engine is because there's an alternate piece that can go in, which is the kind of transformed engine piece that comes out of her head. And in the show, this pops out to let her fly. So to get it in there, all we've got to do is snap it in like that into the little socket. This is the bent one, that's why it doesn't want to go in. That one's not going to work because the toy is actually wrecked in that spot, but you get the idea. Her flying head. Let's see if I can force that in off camera. So that took quite a bit of work. I thought I was going to explode the head to pieces, but there you go. Flight mode. Here's another head accessory for Drossel. It's kind of like a visor that pops down in front of her eyes. It's also printed, but if you look at my thumbnail here, you can see some yucky colours kind of rubbing off the toy. So some of the printing on this toy is actually not the best quality. I'm not sure where that rubbed off, but I think it was off that head bun when I was squeezing it so hard a minute ago. One problem with this headpiece is I don't think that it's glued together properly. It just tabs on these little bumps on the side of her head, and the orientation of the bumps on this piece don't allow it to be up like this. So in the box they show it kind of in this position, but in reality you can only kind of tab it on in this position, which makes sense because it's meant to go over her eyes, but it's hard to emulate the box art. To illustrate more succinctly what I mean, here is Drossel with her head attachment on exactly as it fits the toy. So that's the best possible way to attach it without it falling off. And here we've got the Gashapon version of Drossel, which comes with her head attachment, and you can see that when it attaches, the eyes are much more visible and more fitting with what we see on the box art. As a bit of a size comparison, this is the Chugoken Charming Fireball Drossel from earlier that I reviewed, and you can see that comes up to about mid-chest. I really like this Drossel, and I hear that this one is very different from the Chugoken of the original style Drossel, so I'm really curious as to whether I should get that, but it's about $250 right now, and I don't feel like paying $250 for a Drossel, but who knows, someday it might be reissued and I'll probably jump on it if that happens. My final thoughts on Chinese version Figma Drossel: yeah, definitely go out and get it. It does have its problems, some pretty massive problems. The rusty screws, the misassembled headpiece, smudgy paint. I mean, just look, when you look up close, look at this head here, if I can focus on it. That line around the head is a little bit wonky. It looks like someone drew it in with a pen. But you know, from a normal distance, a shelf distance back here, it's not that bad looking. It looks half decent. It's only when you get it up close in your face on the internet, on pictures or videos, that's when it starts to look a little bit bad. But at $30, I haven't really got that much to complain about. And don't just take my word for it. My daughter took this to school the other day for show and tell, one of it, and apparently all the little girls liked Figma Drossel. So the boys thought it was dumb, didn't want anything to do with it. The girls all liked it, and she's like 5 years old, so 5-year-old girls like Figma Drossel. That's pretty good recommendation. Anyway, this has been my review. I'm Odeean, and thanks for watching.